Well, hey there, diet disruptors. Carrie here. And once again, I have an episode where I am not alone because my favorite kind of episodes is when I have somebody with me. And I have one of my favorite people with me. And we haven't even known each other all that long, but I feel like we've known each other. We were meant to be together. So I have a story to tell you about how I met this woman and her journey. And I can't wait for you to come on along with it. So Stacey Alteri, it's so nice to have you here. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Carrie. I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you?
I am good. I am good. So if you are watching while we're live streaming, then put in a hi, Stacey. Because Stacey, I think this is the first time you've ever done anything like this before, is
Oh,
it?
yes, the first time. And that will be very obvious as we go on.
It's so great that you put yourself out there and just like you have a story to tell and people need to hear it. And so we can be a little uncomfortable sometimes, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Stacey, just before we started, I was just like, you just look radiant. You just look so healthy and all of that. And you said you feel it. Is that true?
I feel it. And it's very interesting because I got COVID in 2020. I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks.
I know.
It was very scary. And I got home and for a week, I took like another 2 months off from work. I was so fatigued. I was exhausted. And even after that, I was still tired. And I thought, I'm a long hauler. I'm going to just always be tired now because of COVID. Like, damn you, COVID,
Right.
and then, so I just sort of built my life around being tired, right? I'd be tired at 5 o'clock. I'd be exhausted at 6. I'd go up to bed at 6:30 at night, like every night after work. I'm like, that's just me. I'm just tired. And so when I started doing disruptive nutrition, which was end of October last year,
Yep.
within 10 days, and I was looking at my notes today, in anticipation of talking with you, and I saw that after just 10 days of the 4 weeks to wellness, I get so choked up. I was not tired anymore. And I think on Facebook, I like posted an apology to COVID. I'm like, I'm sorry. I've been blaming you, but it was me. And it was my diet, and it was all the things that I didn't know that I was doing to myself. And it's almost funny now, sad as well, but funny. I'm like, geez, 10 days. Who would have thought it?
I know. And it's so amazing how that that shift just changed everything for you. But
Everything.
that wasn't the hard part of doing it. It was the hard part of just like making the decision and saying yes and committing
Yep.
to doing something different and something that maybe sounded too good to be true. I remember actually seeing your post and you were like, "I'm sorry, COVID."
Yeah.
Where's she going with this? I'm not quite sure. And then it made sense. You are so filled with energy. I can't imagine the Stacey tired because
Oh,
everything I know about you. And again, like I just feel like we haven't known each other all that long. We met in October. And again, I
yep.
can't wait to tell our story about our how we met and our background. But you know,
Yep.
everything about you just radiates such joy. And it makes me so sad to think like, oh my gosh, that wasn't the Stacey that people have seen for years.
Yeah. Yep. It's true.
It's so
But I'm
crazy.
back, baby.
You're back. All right, Stace, let's talk about how we met because this is the craziest of all the stories.
Craziest.
Oh my gosh.
Craziest.
I mean, so I'm always encouraging people, let's get you on a call, talk to a coach. Let's just talk through,
Yeah.
what's going on with you and come up with a plan one way or the other. Well, we have a team of coaches and I never get to do those calls, right? Because I got a whole lot of other stuff going on. But every once in a while, something will happen with one of our coaches or we're overbooked or whatever. And I'll get a message, Carrie, can you take a call? And so I took a call and it was with you.
Yep.
And we get on the phone and you're just personable and so sweet. And I love that. And then I said to you, like, so where are you from? And she's from Connecticut. And I'm like, oh, stop it. Oh, that's so funny. Because we have people from Connecticut.
Yeah.
But we're a pretty small state. So, sometimes you're like, do you know somebody or whatever? And I ask you what town you're from, and you literally named my town.
Yeah. And I assumed you wouldn't know. I'm like, oh, I'm from this little town called Bethany, because nobody knows Bethany.
I
But you
I
know,
remember going, what did you just say?
Yeah.
I stood up and I'm like, stop it right now. And you didn't know why I was saying all of this.
Yeah.
I was literally freaking out because this is what I always say. If I ever get on a call with a woman myself, I'm like, this is the woman I was supposed to talk to.
Yeah.
It like doesn't happen that often, but when I do, it's the right person. And it's like, I've always said that and I believe it, but then that happened and I'm like, all right.
That was nuts. And you're right, 2 miles away. It's
It was
so
so
absurd.
crazy. And so when you ended up saying yes to working with us and we have a materials box that we send with goodies and all sorts of stuff, I hand delivered it to you.
That was great.
I got to meet
Yep.
your husband and see where you live. And it was so fun. So I love that, this is the kind of stuff that brings us together. But when I said, how did you hear about me? Because we have
Yep.
common friends, like on
Right.
Facebook and you went to my daughter's performance, who is Belle in Beauty and the Beast with one of my friends who's one
Yep.
of your friends. And so crazy. But
So
when I said, how
funny.
did you hear about us? You were like on a Facebook ad.
Yeah. And I saw our Facebook ad, but then it said Katie Zielinski likes blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, oh, and as soon as I saw Katie, like that gave it some validity for me because I didn't know who you guys were. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, let me take a look at this.
And Katie was a client too. So, I mean, I love how it all.
Yeah. And then I don't know if I told you this, but, a couple of months after my son's now not playing sports anymore. It breaks my heart. Anyways, Katie's got 2 girls, as you know, still at Amity playing field hockey and lacrosse. So I go to their games. They're my substitute daughters.
Oh, you are so sweet.
And so we were at a field hockey game, I don't know, somewhere up in Hartford. And she's like, how's it going? You look great. I'm like, oh, it's going so great. I love it, blah, blah, blah. And she pulls out an energy bar and she goes, I still eat PFC every 3. She goes, I'm just having my bar right now. And I don't know, it was years since you guys have worked together, I think,
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah.
It's so good to hear that,
Yeah, I love that. And that's exactly what it is, just part of her life. I mean, and that's a really good example of you, Stacey, because when we first met, it was like you were just in this place of like the lack of energy and there was fear there too.
Yeah.
Fear of like, what's going to happen to me? What's my purpose here? Like, what's happening with my health? And it was just, I want you to tell your story about that. But as I see you now and how you've evolved and what your personality is and all of that, I always say we were not put on this earth to find the right diet, right?
No.
Like we were put on this earth for a bigger purpose. And I love so much that you said yes to yourself to focus on you getting to your optimal health because you offer so much to this world. Just the fact that you go to my daughter's events and your other friend's daughter's event says you have a heart that is so full, and it would be such a tragedy if the world lost you sooner than they should because you weren't able to, get help.
Right.
And so this is to me where it's like know your value and your purpose is so much bigger than that weight on the scale. But yet when you just have the confidence that you know what you're doing is right, it's amazing how the weight, the energy, all the things that you wanted those diets to do end up happening. So tell us your story.
Yeah. So the main point of my story is that my grandmother, my mother, and now my older sister, who's 72, all got type 2 diabetes. And I remember my mother was about 60, probably about what the age I am now, when she was first diagnosed. And before you knew it, she was taking insulin. My grandmother, and I was horrified at that. And we grew up, sadly, my mother in the 40s and 50s, it was a different world back then. And I remember, our big special breakfast was these Sara Lee coffee cakes that my mother would bake in the oven and cut in half and give half to me and half to my brother Greg. We were the 2 that were home. We were 6 kids, right? But everyone was older and they were off school this that. So me and my brother, and we'd split this half of a coffee cake. And, that was just so normal for me and such a big treat. Twinkies and, grilled cheese. And I don't know if we ever ate anything good. My dad, when he'd make broccoli for us, he'd cook it to this like dark army green mush. Like that's what I thought broccoli was. And I wasn't very fond of it.
Yeah, of course. Why would you want to eat?
Why would I? Yeah. But, they were doing the best they could with what they knew, but it was not a good basis for, avoiding potential pitfalls of health, going forward. So, everybody fell into these, and
honestly, Stacey, it was right around the time too where the processed food industry just really took off, and it was just convenience, and it's
it
good
was
for you. It's
convenience.
fine.
Right. It was like us having computers. They didn't have to do everything from scratch. It freed things up and whatever. And nobody really knew the implications. It was like cigarettes then. I
Right.
mean, my mother smoked through when I was born, she was still smoking, but the more we know. And so, I've gone back and forth with my weight my whole life. I was an athlete. I was a Division I soccer player, and then I played soccer for years after. I was a very high level athlete, and flirted with my weight then. But I was working out probably 6 hours a day back then, every day, and all summer, and doing camps and everything. So it didn't really, it wasn't in my sight that I was going to be heavy. But after I really slowed down and stopped playing, which was probably my mid-30s, just whoop, all the weight came on. And I was, after having been an athlete for so long, I was honestly embarrassed. I didn't feel like a person who was an athlete should be overweight. It was humiliating to me. And I felt like I should just be able to, stop eating for a month and run harder, and then I would be back to normal. And of course, the more I did that over and over again, I'd lose the weight and then I'd gain it back. And I probably did that 20 times. And, as you described, my set point kept going up and up and up. And the last time I did it, I went to, I don't know if you've ever heard of the key hypnosis. It was a big thing back in like 17, 18. One of my friends told me, oh, I know you've been struggling with your weight, blah, blah, blah. So I went up to this place in Western Mass. You had to go for 3 sessions. Each session was 3 hours long. It was a room full of 200 people. And this one woman, it was really fascinating. This woman stood up, Julie something, I forget her name. And she basically talked to us for 3 hours. And apparently we were all hypnotized. And what she was pushing was sort of a keto sort of diet. You eat meat, never eat a vegetable without a meat. Always eat the meat first, which now I know from you, right? You want to eat the fats and proteins first because the carbs start to digest quicker. So some of the stuff she said was reasonable, but it was like, if you're hungry, go to Burger King and get a burger, but pull it off the bun and eat it, So it was all about losing weight is the bottom line. It was all about losing weight. And I lost, I don't even know how many pounds, like half a person in a month. I mean, the weight was just falling off of me. Like, it was absurd. And of course, everyone was saying, oh, you look great. Oh, you look great. You look great. And I felt great because I felt, oh, good, I'm not fat anymore. And that was
that's interesting, Stacey. A lot of people will say that to me. Well, when I lost the weight, I felt really good. And I'm like, was it because your body was really healthy, or you were just on these endorphins because you had been losing weight?
It was the endorphins, and everything was, it was ego focused. Finally, I was not heavy. And that's what I thought. And that was the be all and end all. The rest of it never came into my mind. And so, of course, because I was so unhealthy at that point, once I started eating, I could not stop eating. And so
your body had been so deprived.
I was so deprived. And, I had a girlfriend, I have a girlfriend still, a soccer player friend, who's always been very slender. And I mean, I'm a mesomorph anyways. Like, I've never been a thin person. I'm a strong person, but she was very slender. And she was so happy when I lost the weight. Like, she was focused on me not being heavy also, which wasn't so helpful. But when I started gaining weight back, she said, you know how to lose it. You know how you should eat. Why can't you do it? I said, I can't do it. The way she was telling us to eat, it wasn't a normal way for a human to eat. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
No, and that's the thing. Like, we just keep thinking, eat less, move more. We put our body at a deficit. Like, we don't do that to our cars. We don't do that to our animals. We don't do that. Like, it doesn't make sense, but we just keep thinking, because we keep focusing on losing weight as the goal. But if you got healthy,
right.
Your body doesn't want that weight. It's putting it on to protect you.
And we look at it the opposite way. If you lose weight, then that means you're healthy. And now that I see it's inverse, I mean, and it's that simple switch. And I'll tell you, every time I tried to lose weight, and again, there was all sorts of depression and self-esteem issues and all this stuff that was always associated with my weight. And I was going to see a psychologist, for counseling. And I said to this guy who was so sweet, but, not very informed. And I said, I could lose weight. I have no problem losing. I'm like the queen of losing weight. I've done it 500 times. I know I can lose weight, but I'm not going to do it again because I know I'll gain it back. And I'd rather just be the me that I am than lose the weight and gain it back. I couldn't do that again to myself. And he said, well, why don't you just lose it? And then we'll worry about that after. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And I put my foot down.
Impossible. It's impossible.
That was in 2019. Yeah. I'm like, until I find a way. And I was convinced, I said, this can't be as hard as I've been making it. There's got to be a simple twist. I kept saying that. Somewhere there's a twist that I have to make a change. And once I get that little clue and make change, then it's going to fall in place. But I'm not going to count things and don't eat things and do eat things and weigh things and like that didn't feel to me like how it should be. So I waited and I waited and I waited. And then my brother was doing Noom. So he said, try Noom. I love it. I looked at that for like a month. I'm like, no, that's not for me. A computer telling me that I ate the wrong. That's
it's
not
also caloric deprivation. That's the whole basis
it's
of
all
it.
Calories and it's weight based. Everything is, get on the scale and weigh yourself. And I'll tell you, because I'm a mesomorph and I've always, I might look slender and good. I'm still 135. Like that's a good weight for me. That sounds enormous to some people, but to me, that's a comfortable weight. So the scale has never really, freaked me out that much, but it shouldn't be the focus and the weight and the way you look to other people. It's like, I never liked when people said like, oh, you look good. And they meant it because I'd lost weight. They didn't mean what you said, which is you look good. You're like vibrant and healthy. That's what you meant.
Well, it's so funny that you just say that because I just had somebody at my house recently and they were on this drug that everybody is on these days. That's for diabetes. It's an appetite suppressant. It's just absolutely outrageous. She has been up and down in her weight. I have tried so hard to get her to listen to me. She's the smallest I've ever seen her. And I refused to know. I don't want to comment on women's bodies ever.
Anyway.
Because that's not, you know exactly what I meant. You just look so vibrant and alive. But I refused because she wanted me to notice her weight loss as if that was the win. And I thought, you're just simply not eating because you're taking drugs to keep your appetite. I can't ever, like, she didn't look vibrant. You see people that lose weight in a way that is very unhealthy and they might look smaller, but they look unhealthy. Yep. There's a reason for that.
And there's a reason for that. But, to sort of go back to my original story, I was terrified of becoming diabetic. And so when I saw disruptive nutrition and I saw that a good friend of mine had, at some point she liked it, and I looked and I listened and, I spoke with a coach, and then I spoke with this other lady who lives near me and it made simple sense. And I think someone posted on your website, why is nobody else teaching this? And that's how I feel like this is so, and you go into all the science of it, that, a lot of it, I understand, some of it I don't yet, I keep going over it, but it just makes so much logical sense. And to know that you're doing something good for your body. And I said, and one of the other things you wrote in, I think the trifecta or whatever your book is, that the most successful people do what the program says to do. I'm paraphrasing, but something like that. Like, if you're going to do it, get in and do it. And if anyone asked for my advice on what's the best way to do this program, that would be the one thing I'd say. Just do it. Everything's mapped out for you. Carrie spent billions of hours and your team putting all this stuff together. Just, get in and just float along and do what they tell you. It's easy. It's so easy. Sometimes it's overwhelming, and I talked to Coach Michelle about that. And then I realized, oh, okay, I don't have to do every single thing every single day. I just have to do the basics of what I'm meant to do, especially in 4 weeks to wellness. It's all nicely laid out.
Mhm.
And then there's all these other things when I'm ready. I go in and I do this and I look at that and I read that and I do a book study or I listen to a podcast. It doesn't all have to be done right now.
Yeah, because that's the big point. Like, I don't want people like here for a little while and then doing a membership or whatever, because you're going to end up not engaging. And if you're paying to be in a membership every month, you're going to eventually just be like, I don't want to pay this anymore. I want you in here with us. And so, Stace, whether you like it or not, right? You're like in forever.
It makes a difference. It makes a difference. It's a real kind of connection. And I questioned it a couple times at the beginning. Why do I have to do this for a lifetime? I'm doing well with this, blah, blah, blah. But then I started to see how really important it is to stay connected in whatever way works for different people. There's some people that they're in whole hog and they're doing a ton of stuff and that's working for them and they love it. And then there's people like me. I'm probably a little less involved. I dip in here and I dip in there, but I love knowing that at any point in time, I can still, Vox Coach Michelle or reach out to you or anybody else or the Facebook group. And there's plenty of support and ideas. And sometimes maybe I'm helping someone by telling something I've gone through that, maybe people were questioning. Then like, oh, okay.
I always love it. And it was so funny because one of the post that you put up is you decided to officially change your first name to PFC.
PFC.
Yes, I told Mark McDonald that the father of
Oh my God,
literally wrote the book on it, and he just thinks that is so funny.
It's
Whenever
it's
I check in,
it's hilarious and simple. I just
But what, like, at the end of the day, I'd love to be able to hear, like, I always say when people start their journey and then, 3 months in, 6 months in, a year in, 5 years in, your life should continue to look different, evolve.
Right.
You're never going to get fully there. There's no end in sight. You're always going to keep bringing yourself to a new level of health or wellness, and getting to your optimal health has no end in sight. So how does your life look different now than it did in October when you first kind of said yes and said, all right, I'm going to trust this chick?
Okay, well, it looks very different. The same in a lot of ways, but very different too. First of all, I'm never tired. I mean, I'm ready to go to bed when it's bedtime. And it's normal. I don't know how to describe that. It's not that overwhelming fatigue. I never had that. Secondly, I've been able to exercise again. And that's, you always say, oh, exercise. I'm like, oh, exercise. Like, I love exercise, running, lifting. I mean, that's something that's been so important in my life. And I hadn't done that for years. And I was looking over my list of things, how things have changed for me. And I have the Peloton bike and the Peloton tread. I have a gym downstairs that we built for my son when he was 16, built for my son. And, that it's great weight room and all this stuff. And it's just all been sitting there, sadly. And the Peloton stuff, sadly, with me paying monthly for nothing. So that's another thing. I'm exercising again. And because I've dropped so many inches, I'm able to play soccer again, which I hadn't played in years. And I was playing, we have a league here in Connecticut, right? Women's Nutmeg League and West Hartford League. I was playing in 2 leagues up until like 2019. And then I have very bad arthritis in one of my ankles. And it was bone on bone and it was so sore, but I was carrying so much extra weight, and when I went to the ortho, he was like, I can't really do anything, but you could do something. I'm like, yeah, he goes, well, I don't really want to, but you could. I said, are you saying I'm fat and I could lose weight? He goes, well, yeah. I go, okay. And I had just started DN and I'm like, I've got that covered. That's on its way. And, I've got a ways to go, but I'm heading in the right direction. And it's been enough that I'm out. We played our first game last week and I wasn't half shabby.
You have to tell me when you're playing. I want to go watch you.
I will. We play Sunday mornings and they've started an over 50s league, which is helpful for me. It used to be open. So we'd be playing with kids that were 25, 30, 35. That's just ridiculous. But now, so that's, my life has changed in small ways, but very, very important ways to me, that I can be out playing with my friends and exercising and just moving around more and feeling good about it.
I love, love, love that. Let's talk about your thinking. because our thoughts and our beliefs dictate our actions. You know that really well.
I do
And
indeed.
everybody always says, just tell me what to eat. Just tell me what to eat. That's the easy part. I could
Yeah,
easily just teach people how to eat. And I did that for years and years. And most people fell off. They fell off
right.
because we didn't actually get to the behaviors, the mindsets. So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. How has your thinking changed?
My thinking, with everything I've done practicing for DN through the first 3 months and everything, I mean, honestly, I've always been a relatively optimistic person,
Yeah.
in general. And this sort of plays like right into my strengths, I guess, because now I understand that it's not just about being optimistic, it's about deliberately having a positive outlook on certain things that I'm doing. Like,
Mhm,
I guess the intentionality, you talk about that a lot. That
mhm,
was something I didn't really have before. I was
mhm.
just like, oh, just be happy, whatever. And now I'm like, I can sit down in the morning, and my morning time is different from yours, but similar. I'm sitting out with my dogs in the yard when I can, with my either cup of tea or sometimes a cup of coffee, and just sort of looking around, being so grateful for everything that the stuff that I've had anyways, but now I just appreciate it differently because I
Mhm.
feel like I'm on the right path now. Like I found my way. I was lost in the forest for so long, and now I found my way, and it's simple like I knew it was going to be, even though I didn't know what it was going to be. And it's easy, and it's filled with, support. There's like, I feel like there's no way I could go wrong. So it just makes me, it's psyched, and I have little magnets on my fridge, and I'm like, I just have joy and smile and be there for yourself. Things like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm saying this the right way, but
You
it
definitely are. And I love that so much because you are so optimistic and positive. And this is what I say all the time. Yes, you still are working on this journey and you'll continue to evolve. We all are. I am,
right,
everybody is. Confidence does not come because you've met your goal, because we're constantly going to push ourselves, but confidence
right.
comes when you know what you're doing is right. And that's what I see in you, this level of confidence. I mean, you know so much now, you could teach it. What do you say? You could
Yes, I
teach
could.
this. Absolutely. That's my goal. And but it's just you wake up every day with this knowledge base and when you know you can do. And I think that all of this matters,
Yep,
but knowing yourself is the biggest key to this because you got to be able to figure out what are your triggers? What are the things that hold
right.
you back? What are those, disempowered mindsets that you have and how much self-awareness? Because if we go through the day not being aware, you're never going to
Yep.
figure out how you change the things and how you get to where you are.
That's been one of the biggest things for me, is the self-awareness,
Mhm.
your snap method, because how many times you just react on an emotion, and things aren't perfect, right?
Right.
My husband still bugs me, and things go wrong, things at work, and always my go-to was, all right, I'm going to take a break and go get a donut. I mean,
Mhm.
honestly, the things I ate, you would die. I'd go to Whitney Donut and buy a half a dozen donuts and just munch them through the day,
Mhm.
because I thought that was a good way to either A, reward myself for something that went good, cheer myself up for something that was going bad. I mean,
Mhm.
there was no reason not to go have a donut. Like, any reason was a good reason.
Mhm.
And now, since I've delved into my why, and again, that diabetes, which, by the way, I'm no longer pre-diabetic from my last yeah, yeah. But now, and I don't even crave the sugar really anymore, but the
Right.
old me is still like, oh, that was good, why don't you go? And then I like stop, like, wait a minute, that's no reward. Like, stuffing crap into my body is no reward. If anything, it's
Yeah.
a punishment. And
Yeah.
I'm able to just be aware of that and make a different decision, whether it's to go for a walk or spend time with the dogs, or something that is actually more like a reward.
That is what is so different to me
So different.
because you can eat differently and exercise and stuff, but when you actually are in the trenches and you're in the moment of an
Yep.
emotional breakdown where you historically for decades have done
Decades.
something that was not necessarily going to serve your body, that was going to
Right.
make you feel guilty later, that was contributing to the issues with your health, but yet we continue to self-sabotage,
Yep.
and you don't do that anymore, and it doesn't feel like you ever want to, like you've changed your habits into a way that's actually
Yep.
sustainable.
Right.
And that's transformation. That's
It is.
like cocoon to a butterfly.
And it's funny, it clears things up because I know before, like my body knew that a donut wasn't a good thing, but my mind was saying a donut's a good thing. So I think that's where a lot of the issues come with self-esteem and things like that. Like you're butting heads between what you know is wrong and what you think is right, or what you want it to be right. It doesn't make any sense to you.
Yep.
Now everything like flows the same way. And it
Yeah.
makes sense. My body knows it's right. My mind knows it's right. My heart knows it's right. My dogs know it's right. But they're like, we still want treats. I'm like, okay,
You got
but
it. You got
healthy
it.
treats. But
Oh,
yeah,
I
so
love this. You're playing soccer again. You are not pre-diabetic. You are here
no,
for the long haul. You're confident, you're radiating, and people just get to know more and more. And because of this, they're going to know more and more of Stacey too,
yeah, and
because
I've made some great new friends. So
I
what's not to
love
love
it.
about that?
Stacey, you are the best. I'm so happy that I got on that call with you, that we're neighbors. I feel like I could yell really loud and you'd almost hear me.
You could. Yep.
It's so cool. In fact, we texted and you were like, should I come over for this? And I'm like,
Isn't
honestly,
that funny? Yeah.
it's
And I would ride
actually
my electric
easier.
bike. My husband and I got electric bikes for Christmas. I don't know if you've ever experienced those. They're hilarious and they're great. So
My husband keeps talking about getting electric bikes.
they're the best because you can still pedal and get a workout as much as you want. It's not like you're just all electric. However, you can ride all around the hilly roads of
Yeah.
Bethany, which I couldn't do on my other bike. They are
Yeah.
so fun. They are so fun. I
Oh,
highly recommend.
yeah.
Yeah.
That might be our next thing. So.
Yeah.
Well, Stacey, thank you for sharing your story. I'd love for you to comment, you guys. What are you taking away from Stacey's story? I mean, I just think you went from believing you were a long hauler to playing soccer in a matter of months. And I just think
I say playing. I have to put the air quotes playing, but I'm still out there.
I'm sure you would kick my butt in a second because I never played soccer really. So, well, Stacey, thank you so much for being here. And I will see you in our membership group as you continue to just entertain me with all of your amazing, funny posts.
You bet, Carrie. Thank you so much
Love
for having me. I
you.
really appreciate it.
Bye.